There are nights that seem endless, nights when sorrow lingers like a heavy cloak, pressing against the chest until breathing feels like labor, nights when prayers seem to vanish into the silence, and tears fall unanswered to the ground. Such nights feel longer than any day, and the dawn appears as nothing more than a distant dream. Yet Scripture tells us in Psalm 30, verse 5, "Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning." The longest night is not eternal. The sorrow that feels unbearable does not reign forever. Morning is promised, and the dawn cannot be denied. But how does one endure such a night? How does the soul, bruised and weary, keep faith alive when shadows stretch unbroken across the horizon? Think of a traveler caught in a storm. The rain lashes against him. The path is lost beneath his feet, and the lightning reveals nothing but more wilderness. He feels abandoned, left to wander. Yet, unseen above the clouds, the stars still burn. Beyond the storm, the dawn still waits its appointed hour. And though the traveler does not yet see it, light is already on the way. Our lives, too, move through seasons of deep sorrow, grief at the loss of one we love, the ache of prayers that seem unanswered, the silence of God when we long to hear His voice. Each sorrow feels like another hour added to the night. And yet, the story of Scripture, the witness of the saints, and the voice of Christ Himself all declare that no night, however long, can silence the promise of morning. Consider Job, who sat among ashes, his body broken, his heart shattered, his friends accused, his wife despaired, his soul cried out for answers. Yet even in his anguish, he uttered words of hope in Job chapter 19, verse 25. "For I know that my Redeemer liveth, and that he shall stand at the latter day upon the earth." Job's night was long, but even there he glimpsed the dawn. The mystery of sorrow is that it feels final, yet it never is. Pain convinces us that this moment is all there will ever be. But Christ, the light of the world, entered into our darkness to show us that every sorrow has its sunrise. Even death itself, the darkest night of all, was shattered by the dawn of resurrection. Matthew chapter 28 verse 6 declares the angel's words, "He is not here, for he is risen. The stone rolled away, the tomb left empty. The morning broke into eternal day." So when you face your longest night, do not mistake its silence for God's absence. Do not mistake its weight for God's neglect. He is there, even when unseen. He is working, even when silent. And the dawn, though delayed, will come. To embrace the dawn is not only to rejoice when the morning arrives. It is to trust in the night that the morning is already certain. Faith does not always erase sorrow, but it transforms sorrow into waiting. And waiting, when held in the arms of hope, becomes worship. Perhaps as you listen now, you are walking through such a night. Perhaps grief has bent your shoulders low, or fear has stolen your sleep. Hear these words not as empty comfort, but as a promise sealed by the one who cannot lie. The dawn is coming. Your night will not last forever. And when morning breaks, its light will be all the brighter for the darkness you have endured. Sorrow is a mystery. It arrives without invitation and often lingers longer than we expect. Some sorrows strike suddenly, like a storm that tears branches from the trees. Others seep slowly, like a fog that creeps into every corner of the soul. Yet none of them are wasted when they are placed in the hands of God. The Apostle Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 17, "For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, worketh for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory." Notice the paradox. Affliction is described as light and momentary, not because it feels easy, but because when weighed against eternity, sorrow becomes the soil in which glory takes root. But in the long night, we rarely see this truth. Instead, we cry out as the psalmist did in Psalm 13, verse 1. "How long, O Lord, wilt thou forget me forever? How long wilt thou hide thy face from me?" These words are not the language of rebellion, they are the honest cry of a soul that refuses to let go of God, even when his face feels hidden. It is in this very honesty that faith is revealed. To cry out to God in sorrow is still to turn to him, rather than away. Sorrow, then, is not merely an enemy. It can become a teacher. It teaches us our frailty, reminding us that we are dust. It teaches us dependence, leading us to the only one who never fails. It teaches us compassion, softening our hearts toward the wounds of others. Those who have walked through the longest nights are often those who carry the gentlest light for others, still wandering in the dark. Think of Joseph, betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, cast into prison, his sorrow stretched for years, and the night seemed unending. Yet when the dawn broke and he stood before them as a ruler in Egypt, he could say in Genesis chapter 50, verse 20, "Ye thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save much people alive." What had been intended for evil became the soil of redemption. His sorrow was transformed into salvation for many. So too with us. The nights we fear will destroy us can, in the hands of God, become the very ground on which his mercy blooms. It is not that he delights in our pain, but that he refuses to let pain have the last word. The enemy may sow sorrow, but God can weave even sorrow into a tapestry of redemption. And here lies the key. Sorrow does not define us, God's presence in sorrow does. When the Israelites walked through the wilderness, they were not defined by the barrenness of the desert, but by the cloud of glory that led them, the pillar of fire that guarded them. When Daniel sat among lions, he was not defined by the danger, but by the angel who shut their mouths. When Paul and Silas sang in the prison at midnight, they were not defined by chains, by the Spirit who filled the darkness with song. Sorrow, therefore, becomes a passage, not a prison. It is a night with an appointed end. It is a valley, not a grave. Psalm 23 verse 4 speaks this clearly. Yeah. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Notice the word through. The valley is not the destination. It is the path. The shadow is not permanent. The shepherd is near. And when at last the dawn breaks, we discover that the sorrow we thought would undo us has, in God's hands, deepened our roots, strengthened our faith, and carved out a greater capacity for joy. The tears that burned our eyes become jewels in his presence. The prayers uttered in anguish become seeds that blossom in eternity. So if you are walking now through such a night, hear this. Your sorrow is not wasted. Your tears are counted. But Psalm 56 verse 8 tells us, "Thou tellest my wanderings, put thou my tears into thy bottle. Are they not in thy book?" Every sigh, every tear, Every long hour of waiting is gathered by the one who loves you. None of it is forgotten. None of it is meaningless. And so we press on, not denying sorrow, but placing it in the hands of the Redeemer. For in his hands, sorrow becomes the path to joy. In his hands, the night becomes the preparation for dawn. There comes a moment in every night when the darkness is at its deepest. The air grows colder, the silence heavier, and it feels as though the world has forgotten the light. Yet it is at this very moment, when the shadows are fullest, that the dawn is nearest. Hope often begins in the smallest ways. A faint glow at the edge of the horizon, a birdsong breaking into silence, a breath of wind carrying the scent of morning. These are quiet signs, easy to miss, yet they carry a message stronger than despair. The night cannot last forever. So it is with the soul. When sorrow weighs us down, hope does not always arrive as a trumpet blast or a blazing fire. It often comes as a whisper of verse remembered, a prayer uttered through tears, a friend's hand resting quietly on our own. These whispers are the heralds of dawn. The prophet Isaiah spoke of this in chapter 9, verse 2. The people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them hath the light shined. Notice that the light shines not apart from the shadow, but into it. Hope does not wait for sorrow to end before arriving. Hope enters the sorrow, transforming it from within. Think of Peter, who wept bitterly after denying his Lord. His night must have felt endless, filled with shame, regret, and despair. Yet at dawn, on the shore of Galilee, the risen Christ prepared a fire, baked bread, and restored him with 3 simple words: "Feed my sheep." The night had been long, but the morning brought not condemnation, but calling. This is the nature of divine hope. It does not erase the past, but redeems it. It does not pretend the night was not dark, but it declares that the dawn is brighter still. When hope breaks through, it lifts the soul like the rising sun lifts the mist from the fields. What seemed impossible in the night becomes possible in the morning. The questions that haunted us lose their sting, for the presence of Christ changes everything. As Lamentations chapter 3 verses 22-23 remind us, it is of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. Morning mercy. Daily compassion. This is the dawn that meets us after the night of sorrow. And yet, hope is more than comfort, it is strength. It is the steady assurance that the story is not over. Romans chapter 8 verse 18 speaks with boldness. For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. Hope lifts our eyes beyond the present valley to the mountains of eternity. For some, this hope breaks in gradually. For others, it floods in all at once. But however it comes, its power is the same. It lifts the heart, steadies the steps, and anchors the soul. Hope is not fragile sentiment, it is the anchor cast into eternity, holding us fast against the storms of time. Hebrews chapter 6 verse 19 says, "Which hope we have as an anchor of the soul, both sure and steadfast." Notice the words, sure and steadfast. Not shifting, not uncertain, but solid. immovable. The night may rage, but the anchor holds. Perhaps you feel now that your night has stretched too long, that the dawn may never break. Remember this: the very fact that you still long for morning is itself a sign that hope has not left you. For despair would silence longing, but hope keeps it alive. And if longing still beats in your chest, then the Spirit of God is at work within you. So lift your eyes. Weary though they are, look toward the horizon. Faint though the light may seem, the dawn is coming. The Son of Righteousness rises with healing in his wings. And when his light breaks fully, you will see that every step in the night has led you here, to this moment of sunrise. The dawn does not simply mark the end of night, it ushers us into a new way of living. After sorrow has tested us, and hope has broken through, we are invited to walk in the light of redemption. This light does not only warm us, it changes us. It transforms the very way we see ourselves, others, and God. To live in the light is first to remember that we are not defined by the night we endured, but by the grace that carried us through. Too often, people wear sorrow as an identity, as though their grief has the final word, but redemption speaks otherwise. 2 Corinthians chapter 5 verse 17 declares, "Therefore if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new." Notice the language: not merely mended, not patched together, but new. The night may leave scars, but in Christ, scars become testimonies, not chains. Living in the light also means extending to others what we ourselves have received. The mercy that met us in our darkest hour is not meant to be hoarded, but shared. Those who have been comforted become comforters. Paul writes in 2 Corinthians chapter 1 verse 4 that God comforteth us in all our tribulation. We may be able to comfort them, which are in any trouble, by the comfort wherewith we ourselves are comforted of God. In other words, the light given to us is meant to shine outward, guiding others still lost in the dark. Think of Mary Magdalene, who once wept outside an empty tomb, believing all was lost. When the risen Christ called her by name, her sorrow turned to joy, and she became the first to proclaim the news of resurrection. The light she received became the light she bore. So it is with us. The dawn that breaks into our sorrow is meant to shine through us into the sorrow of others. Living in redemption also means walking with a new perspective. No longer do we measure our days only by ease or hardship. We measure them by faithfulness. Every sunrise becomes a reminder that God's mercies are new. Every trial becomes an opportunity to lean on His strength. Every joy becomes a foretaste of the eternal joy to come. This does not mean life is without struggle. The sun may rise, but storms still come. Yet even storms look different in the light. They are no longer signs of abandonment, but opportunities to see the power of the one who calms the sea. They no longer terrify as they once did, for we know the dawn will rise again tomorrow. When we live in the light of redemption, gratitude blossoms where bitterness once grew. Worship rises where silence once reigned. Service flows where selfishness once ruled. The long night is not forgotten, but it is reframed as the stage upon which God's faithfulness was revealed. And this light is not for this life only. It points us forward to the final dawn, the day when night itself will be no more. Revelation chapter 21 verse 4 gives us this vision. and God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow, nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. This is the dawn we await, with longing the eternal morning, when every shadow flees forever. So let us live today as children of that light. Let us carry the hope of the coming dawn in our words, in our actions, in our prayers. For those who still walk in sorrow, let us be gentle guides. For those weighed by despair, let us speak hope. For those bound by bitterness, let us offer mercy. The night was long, yes. The sorrow was heavy, yes. But the dawn has come, and with it, redemption. And those who embrace this light need never fear the night again. We have walked through the longest night, and we have seen how sorrow weighs upon the soul. We have wrestled with questions, with silence, with tears. Yet we have also seen how God does not abandon his children in the dark. He walks with us through the valley. He gathers every tear. He whispers hope when despair presses close. The night may have seemed endless, but the dawn has broken, and in its light we discover something greater than relief. We discover redemption. What was meant to destroy us has deepened our faith. What was meant to silence us has taught us to pray. What was meant to isolate us has drawn us closer to the one who will never leave nor forsake us. This is the paradox of the Christian life. Sorrow and joy are never far apart. The cross and the resurrection are not two separate stories, but one. Out of the deepest night came the brightest dawn. Out of death came life everlasting. And if God could turn the darkest hour of history, the crucifixion of his Son, into the very doorway of salvation, then surely he can turn our nights into mornings of hope. So what does it mean, then, to embrace the dawn? It means to rise each morning with gratitude, even if yesterday held tears. It means to open the heart to mercy, even while scars remain. It means to live as those who believe that sorrow never has the final word. Christ does. His empty tomb declares that despair is defeated, that joy is eternal, that every night has its sunrise. For some of you listening now, the night still feels long. Perhaps the weight of grief still bends your shoulders. Perhaps the silence of unanswered prayer still echoes. If so, know this: the dawn is not a distant dream. It is closer than you think, and when it breaks, you will see that Christ was with you all along, guiding each step, bearing each burden, waiting with mercy in his hands. Let the words of Psalm 30, verse 5 settle deep in your soul. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. This is not wishful thinking. It is a promise sealed in the blood of Christ and fulfilled in the power of his resurrection. So take courage, lift your eyes, embrace the dawn. For the night is passing, the shadows are fleeing, and the light of Christ is already here. And as we close this reflection, I invite you not as an audience, but as fellow travelers to join us again. Here we gather to share stories of faith, of hope, of redemption. If these words have brought you comfort, if they have stirred your spirit, consider subscribing or simply returning so we may continue walking together. For none of us were meant to journey alone. Until then, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you. May his peace guard your heart and mind, and may you live each day in the light of the dawn that never ends.